Hello, welcome to week 6 of our Composition 3 class. So this week we have a couple of new assignments. The creativity challenge this week is to compose a bass riff that will last for 12 bars. This is 12 bars is a pretty typical pattern that we would have in like a rock and roll song. And so to make use of this, we're also going to learn how to do some what we call transposition. And so this is what your creativity challenge looks like. By the way, I says copy of because I make a copy of the assignment on my note flight, so that way I don't change up your assignment with it. But what we want to start with a bass riff, something like this, and we're going to write it out in three different spots on the staff. By the way, we're on our bass clef staff, and we're in the key of A for this song too. So that's why we have the three sharps: the F sharp, a C sharp, and a G sharp. And so the first one, if I were to play this for you, goes like that. And take two. Welcome back to a new week. This is week 6 of our Composition 3 class. Today and this week we have two new assignments. So first of all, the Creativity Challenge. I want to describe that one for you. This is a chance to get some experience writing some basically rock and roll type music. And so, by the way, it says copy because I make a copy so I don't change your assignments when I am showing you this. And so what we're doing is we're creating a bass guitar riff. Now, what a riff is a pattern, kind of like an ostinato, like we learned earlier, that is repeated over and over again. But in this case, it's going to be a little shorter maybe. And it's also, we're going to learn how to transpose it. Now, on this one, we're also going to transpose it up certain intervals or certain number of notes higher or lower, I guess we could say too, in that case, to apply it to the chord pattern that we'll be using for this song. This is a 12-bar blues rock song. 12-bar rock song, I should say, and so it's going to use three chords. In fact, if you look down here at the blank measures, you have an A chord, D, and then a D chord again, an A chord, E, D, A. And so that will give us a good song so that way we can go through it and it'll sound good that way too. But let's get started on how to work through this. So this is an example of a riff that I did. Now notice that each measure is essentially the same. I go quarter, eighth, eighth, half, quarter, eighth, eighth, half, quarter, eighth, eighth, half. However, it's different in the sense that I take the notes and I change where they start. So I start with an A chord. Notice how I started on the note A. All right. By the way, I'm in bass clef here, right? So I'm starting on the note A. The second measure I'm on, I start with the note D. Okay. So I take the same pattern and I move it up to where that first note is now on D. Why? Because it's on a D chord. Now the next one is an E chord. So in this one, I'm going to take that first pattern that I did, and I'm going to start it on E this time. Now there's actually a really, really simple way to do this. What you do is you would take your measure like this, and you would copy paste it into the next measure, and then we would use a button on our Noteflight to transpose it. And I'll show you a little bit more about this. But what you want to do is you want to be creative, have fun with it, explore different things here in these three measures, and just figure out if you can do three different ways of writing a little one measure riff. Starting on A. That's the important thing to do is to start on A. Now I'm going to show you a little bit more about how to do this here. So I'm going to just take this and I'm going to copy paste. Now you can actually, if you on your computer use Command C, that works as well. Or you can go up here and where you go to edit, whoops, and then it says copy right here. And so I think I was on the wrong measure there when I did that. So let's do that again. And then you select the measure, and then you go back to edit and you hit paste, and it actually pastes everything in that measure on there, right? Okay, so now this one, I see how I start with the A here. So I'm going to start with there again. But I want to make sure that I move around here. By the way, I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to delete that D there. And I'm going to actually do this A riff for 4 measures in a row. Let me just get that there. I'm actually going to paste again. Actually, let me do this. I'm going to delete that so that way it doesn't show up every time. Here we go. Copy. And then I paste. I'm going to paste again. Paste again. Now, so that's how we do the first ones. I can delete the other A's that are there. Just you highlight them, select, and hit the delete button. Oops, don't want to delete the whole measure here, though. Okay, now the next one I'm going to do, notice it's a D chord. Now, something funny is going to happen here. Let's try this. I'm going to take that, and I'm going to do that. Notice how the D actually went away, didn't it? Okay, I'll show you how to get that back in a second, but what we want to do is we want to transpose this. So having the whole measure selection, I'm going to go over to where it says pitch here, and then I'm going to either do transpose or I'm going to move up or move down. Now I'm going to go to the transpose. I think that's a little simpler to do. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to select it where it goes up, and then the interval that I'm going to do is going to be a fourth. Okay. Now when I hit 4, it gives me 3 options here: a diminished fourth, a perfect fourth, and augmented fourth. We're going to use perfect intervals on this one today. And so don't worry about the diminished, don't worry about augmented. Select the one in the middle that says perfect. I'm not going to change the key signature. Make sure that's not selected there, okay? And so then, look what happens. It changes the notes where it's at, right? Now, if I wanted to go back and get the chord symbols in there, I would just add that back in. Oops. Anyways, we can do that some other time. Anyways, it's going to be D. I'm going to copy paste since it's another measure of D. By the way, when we don't write the chord again, it stays on the same chord. And then look what chord I'm back to. I'm back to my A. So I'm going to go back to A, and I'm going to hit that there, okay? A again, so copy paste. Okay, now the next one is an E chord. Now let's see what happens here. I want to transpose this one. By the way, from A to D, it's 4 notes. A, B, C, D. 1, 2, 3, 4. This one we want to get to E, so I have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes up. So again, I go to where it says pitch, transpose. I'm going to enter 5, select my perfect interval. I'm not going to change keys here. And I do that. By the way, I left the chord symbol in there, and it actually changed the chord symbol for me. I have another D, so you have to kind of remember it. And then I'm going to transpose it again. 4, select perfect fourth, don't change key signature, and then I'm back to my A for another 2 bars. Notice the repeat here. Then you get to play it back. Now listen to how this works. I added some drums too. You hear the key, the change there, the chord there? This is actually a really common way that musicians make music. Yeah, that's it. And it does the repeat. I'm going to stop it though. You can play it until it's all done though on your own. So this is what the first thing you're going to do. Now, have fun with it. Create that nice bass ostinato or bass riff there, and that would be the first thing. The second thing we're going to be working on today is the 4-chord song. Now this is a little bit more classical oriented, but what we want to do in this one is we want to understand how when we have other instruments, they don't just play chords like we would on, say, like a piano. And especially if you get like an orchestra or something like that, the notes of the chords have to be divided up over all the instruments in the orchestra or the band. And so what we're going to do on this one, you can read the instructions on your own if you want, but I gave you a melody. And by the way, this is a string orchestra, so it's violin 1, violin 2, a viola, a cello, and a bass. And then on top here, I gave you the chords. Now, each of these chords is, I spell out what chord it is too. So it's a D chord, D, F sharp, A. Those are the notes of the chord. This is the name of the chord. Remember, the chord is always based upon the lowest note. the F sharp, well, it's F sharp because of the key signature, don't forget that. And I showed to you on the treble clef and the bass clef to help out. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm going to have you, well, you don't change the melody, but you are going to take the notes of the chord and you're going to spread them out over the other four instruments in the orchestra. So if we think about the orchestra, our bass, that's a pretty big, deep instrument. So we're going to probably put our lowest note here. Now, also, one of the things about the bass is they do have some limitations, and the music is written essentially an octave higher than it's written. I wouldn't worry too much about it right now, but we want to make sure that we're getting the lower notes into the bass. Same thing with the cello. You're going to do a lower note. Let's also notice that these are both in bass clef. The viola, actually, we normally would use the alto clef, but I don't want to spend time trying to teach you how to read alto clef. That's kind of a hard thing to do. So I just put it in treble clef. There's the F sharp, and then there's the D right there. Okay, I even wrote F sharp in there for some reason. So what your job to do is to come in and take the notes of the chord. So our next chord is an A chord. By the way, the chords do correspond, the chords of here correspond with the chords below it as well. So we're going to do an A chord. The notes are A, C sharp, and E, and you're going to spread it out over the measure. So I'm going to add my A there, and I'm going to make that a whole note. Let me get my duration up here. I'm going to make that a whole note. Let's do the cello, let's do the E. And again, I'm going to play that as a whole note. Viola, let's do a C sharp here. Eventually, what we'll think about is how to make all these parts make them real smooth and even, but we don't need to worry about that too much right now. So that way when you play it back, and then it sounds more full when you add the full chord in there. Those are the things to do right now. This is more of an exercise to get you used to dividing the chord up over over multiple instruments. It's actually kind of a hard thing to do because it's a little harder to visualize this as being an A chord and this as being a D chord than we see it like that, right? So that'll be the challenge. This does go on for a few more measures. Now on this one too, it says use this rhythm as you arrange the harmonies. So when we get to this spot, let's see, we start with a D chord, and we're going to use this rhythm: eighth notes, quarter, eighth notes, quarter. And so, let's just take, for example, the bass part here. We're on a D chord, so I'm going to go like that, but I'm going to use eighth notes. Eighth, eighth, quarter, and then eighth, eighth, and then another quarter note to end it with here. And I would do that for all the other notes that I do here. And then so when I get to this measure, see, you'll have that full chord sounding with the rhythm in there as well. That's another thing we do as composers is we don't just give big whole notes, because I'll be honest with you, the orchestra will not like you very much because they'll think their parts are boring. But we want to give them interesting parts, and that's part of what we want to do with adding the rhythm here. And finally, it does end on one more measure, and we end on a whole note for that one. So have fun with this, and do your best, and explore different ways of spreading the notes out across the stringed instruments, okay? All right, bye-bye.